When we got back to her apartment, I helped her onto the sofa. She mumbled, her words thick, "Jennifer, if something's broken, you throw it away. Don't force it." She's known me for over a decade. Even if I never said a word, she could read the turmoil inside me. I smiled and stroked her hair. Just then, my phone lit up with a message from Kobe. "Are you done with your tantrum? When are you coming back? Come home and I'll take you to that Szechuan place. How about that? You're a grown woman, Jennifer. Running away when you're upset isn't the answer. Do you really think this is mature?" For the first time, I didn't reply. The apartment was quiet without Sophie's snores. She drifted off on the couch, a half-empty glass of wine on the coffee table beside her. I picked up the glass, carried it to the kitchen, and stared at the reflection in the window. Rain was falling again, soft and steady, mirroring that afternoon 6 years ago when Kobe and I had first met. Back then, the rain had felt like a gift, a chance collision of two tired souls. Now, it felt like a metaphor, something that blurred the lines between what was, what is, and what might never be. I set the glass down and reached for my laptop, which I'd left in my overnight bag. Sophie had offered her spare room, but I'd been too restless to sleep. Instead, I opened a blank document and started typing. Not to Kobe, not to anyone, but to myself. A list of moments, the way he'd laughed when I spilled coffee on his startup pitch deck, the night he'd held me after my grandma died, the first time Lola had called him a 2am, and he'd left without a second thought. The list grew longer than I expected, a tapestry of joy and hurt woven together so tightly I'd never been able to untangle it. My phone buzzed again, another message from Kobe. "I talked to Lola. She feels terrible about dinner. She said she'll apologize to you tomorrow." I scoffed. Apologies had never fixed anything, not the missed anniversaries, not the nights he'd cancelled plans to help Lola move, not the way he'd looked at me like I was overreacting every time I asked for a little more of his attention. I closed the document and grabbed my jacket. "I'm going for a walk," I whispered to Sophie, even though she was sound asleep. She mumbled something in response, probably about not staying out too late, and I smiled. At least someone cared if I came back. The rain was colder than I'd anticipated, soaking through my hair as I walked. The city was quiet at this hour, streetlights casting golden halos on the wet pavement. I found myself heading toward the coffee shop where Kobe and I had first talked. It was still open, a warm glow spilling from its windows, and I hesitated before pushing the door open. The barista recognized me. We'd become regulars here during Kobe's startup days. "The usual?" she asked, smiling. "A vanilla latte, extra foam." Kobe had always teased me for being basic, but he'd always ordered it for me anyway. "Just a black coffee, please," I said. Something about letting go meant letting go of the little things too. I took a seat by the window, the same seat where Kobe and I had sat that rainy afternoon. A couple sat across from me, laughing softly as they shared a slice of cake. For a moment, I felt a twinge of longing, not for Kobe exactly, but for the version of us that had sat here once, full of hope and possibility. My phone vibrated in my pocket. This time, it was a call from Kobe. I stared at the screen, watching his name flash, and then declined it. A minute later, another call. Declined. Then another. I turned my phone on silent and set it face down on the table. The barista brought my coffee, and I took a sip. It was bitter, just like the truth I'd been avoiding for years. Kobe wasn't a bad person, he was just a selfish one. He'd never meant to hurt me, but he'd never bothered to try not to either. And I'd let him, because I was scared of being alone, scared that 6 years of my life would amount to nothing if we ended things. But sitting here, in this coffee shop, with the rain falling outside and a bitter coffee in my hand, I realized that 6 years of loving someone who couldn't love me back was already nothing. Or worse, something that had slowly chipped away at who I was. I finished my coffee and stood up, feeling lighter than I had in months. As I walked back to Sophie's apartment, I passed Kobe's car parked on the street. He was sitting inside, staring at his phone, and for a second, our eyes met through the rain-streaked window. He looked surprised, then confused, then something else, regret maybe, or just frustration that I wasn't playing by his rules anymore. I didn't wave. I didn't smile. I just kept walking. When I got back to Sophie's, she was still asleep on the couch. I covered her with a blanket and sat down beside her, picking up my phone. There were 10 missed calls from Kobe, and a new message. "Where are you? I'm worried about you." I deleted the message without replying. Then I opened my contacts and found Lola's number. I'd never texted her before, never wanted to engage with the person who'd come between us. But tonight, I typed out a message. "I don't need your apology. I just need you to stop needing Kobe so much. He deserves to choose, and so do I." I hesitated for a minute, then hit send. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of pancakes. Sophie was in the kitchen, wearing an apron that said bride-to-be in glittery letters, flipping pancakes on the stove. "You're up," she said, grinning. "I made your favorite, blueberry, extra syrup." "Thanks," I said, sitting down at the kitchen table. My phone was on the table, and I noticed a text from Lola. "I'm sorry. I never meant to come between you two. Kobe's my best friend, but he's not mine to keep. I'll back off." I stared at the message, unsure how to feel. Relief maybe, or just sadness that it had taken so long for someone to acknowledge what was obvious. Sophie set a plate of pancakes in front of me. "So," she said, sitting down across from me, "what's next?" I took a bite of pancake, the sweet syrup sticking to my tongue. "I don't know," I said honestly. "I'm moving out of Kobe's place for good, that's for sure. I found an apartment downtown last week, small but it's mine. Sophie smiled. That's amazing. When do you move in? Next weekend. Alex offered to help, but I told him I want to do it alone. Start fresh, you know? She nodded. I get it. But if you need anything, boxes, a truck, someone to help you hang pictures, just say the word. I will, I said. We ate in silence for a few minutes, then Sophie's phone rang. It was Alex, and she stepped into the living room to take the call, her voice soft and loving. I watched her, feeling happy for her, and a little jealous. Not of Alex, but of the certainty in their relationship. They knew what they wanted, and they were willing to fight for it. My phone rang again. It was Kobe. This time, I answered. Where are you? He asked, his voice tight with worry. I've been calling you all night. Are you okay? I'm fine, I said, my voice calm. I'm at Sophie's. Why didn't you tell me? He said. I thought something happened to you. You didn't ask, I said. You just assumed I'd come back. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Jennifer, he said, his voice softer. I'm sorry about dinner. I shouldn't have canceled on you. I shouldn't have brought Lola. She's been going through a lot lately, and I didn't want to let her down. That's always the problem, Kobe, I said. You never want to let her down. But you've been letting me down for years. I know, he said. I'm sorry. Can we talk, please? I'll come over to Sophie's right now. I thought about it. For 6 years, I'd been waiting for him to say these words, to apologize, to acknowledge that he'd hurt me. But now that he had, it didn't feel like enough. It didn't fix the late nights alone, the fights, the way I'd lost myself trying to fit into his life. Not today, I said. I need time. Time for what? He asked. Time to figure out if there's even anything left to talk about, I said. He was quiet for a long time. Okay, he said finally. But can I see you soon? I need to show you something. Maybe, I said. I'll call you. I hung up the phone and looked at Sophie, who'd finished her call and was watching me with a concerned expression. You okay? She asked. Yeah, I said, forcing a smile. I just need to take things one day at a time. Over the next week, I threw myself into packing. I went back to Kobe's apartment while he was at work and filled boxes with my clothes, my books, my art supplies. I avoided his bedroom, avoided the closet where our clothes had hung side by side for years, avoided the photos on the wall of us at Sophie's birthday parties, at his startup launch, at the beach where he'd once said, someday we'll get married here. I found a box in the back of the closet labeled memories. Inside were ticket stubs from our first date, a pressed flower from the day he asked me to be his girlfriend, a handwritten note he'd left me when he'd gone on a business trip. I sat on the floor and read the note, my eyes stinging with tears. I miss you already, it said. Can't wait to come home to you. I closed the box and put it in the trunk of my car. I didn't want to throw it away, not yet, but I couldn't keep it in the apartment, where it would only remind me of what we'd lost. On Friday night, I got a text from Kobe. I'm at the beach, the one we talked about. Can you meet me here? I need to show you something. I stared at the text, my heart racing. I hadn't been to that beach in years, not since the day he'd mentioned marriage. Part of me wanted to ignore the text, to keep packing, to pretend he didn't exist. But another part of me was curious. What did he want to show me? I told Sophie where I was going, and she insisted on driving me. Just in case, she said. I'll wait in the car. If you need me, just text.